Good evening. We are at the November Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, and it is now called to order. Before we get started, I want to make some announcements. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded. Therefore, when you come forward, anyone who wants to speak tonight, including the staff, should be sworn in. At this time, I will swear in the staff. You'll raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Additionally, if you wish to speak, if you'll come to the podium and speak into the microphone so that we can be sure that you're heard. You'll also be asked to state your name and your address and then be sworn in. The additional note I would make about our meetings is that all of our motions are made in the affirmative. That does not necessarily mean that the person making the motion or the person seconding the motion will actually vote for the motion when the roll is called. They're just all made in the affirmative, and we then vote up or down. I've already made that note. At this time, will you please call the roll so we can establish a quorum?
Mr. Yulhorn? Mr. Hurley?
Here.
Ms. Bowden?
Here.
Alderman Gibson?
Here.
Chairman Sisson?
Here. The next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from our October 8th meeting. Those have been circulated to our commission. Do I have a motion regarding those?
I move that we approve the minutes.
And if you'll call the roll.
Ms. Bowden?
Yes.
Mr. Yulhorn? Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
Abstain.
Chairman Sisson?
Abstain. Our next item on the agenda is regarding an amendment to our procedures for our meetings. I'll turn that over to Sarah then to give some more information on that.
Thank you, Chairman. The first item on the agenda is a change to the rules of procedure for the Board of Zoning Appeals, namely to add a public notification sign requirement. The specific language that would be added to the rules of procedure, you can see here, underlined in red. Typically, for most Board of Zoning Appeals meetings, there has to be an agenda that is published in the newspaper. The agenda has to be posted on the city's website and posted on the city's bulletin boards, and postcard notices must be sent within a 300-foot radius of the subject property. For use on appeal requests, this amendment would add another layer of public notification. A public notification sign, which would look like this, would actually be placed on the property for a use on appeal. And examples of a use on appeal would be a new cell tower in a residential area, a new school in a residential area. So this would add another layer of transparency and notification then for the public about what is occurring on a piece of property. Specifically for the Board of Zoning Appeals, the public notification signs would not be for variance requests. This public notification sign policy has already been approved by the Planning Commission for their applications such as rezonings, plan unit development, subdivisions. It has also been approved for Design Review Commission, specifically for change of use in Old Germantown. And now it is coming before the Board of Zoning Appeals specifically for a use on appeal request. This is the policy that is outlined for the signs and tells the applicant what to do. And I think that about sums it up in terms of the request. So if there are any questions regarding this new policy, I'm here to answer your questions. Yes.
The sign that you proposed, red, black, says the public hearing will be held, and it gives the case number, but it doesn't give it a date.
Correct. These signs are thought that they could be reused. That way that when they would call staff, they would refer to the case number. As I mentioned, this has already been approved by Planning Commission and DRC, and so we have had a little bit of practice with it now for the Planning Commission. We have received some calls, and they do reference the case number specifically, so that hasn't been an issue yet that someone has said that that's not sufficient information to get what they need. It would say, for example, planned unit development or rezoning.
Any further questions of staff?
Just a comment, Madam Chairman, just simply that I do support this, this change, this amendment. The language, I think, gives us another layer of transparency, and I think that it is something that will benefit the ordinance.
At this time, I guess we need a motion for that. I guess this is, it's a little bit different than our normal business. Okay. Okay, so is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this, this amendment? Is there anybody that would like to oppose, speak in opposition of this amendment? At this time, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, and if you'll call the roll when you are ready.
Mr. Yulhorn,
Yes.
Ms. Bowden,
Yes.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Chairman Sisson.
Yes. And with that, the motion to amend our procedures is approved. At this time, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is regarding 2550 Johnson Road. We'll again turn it over to staff for their report.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. The request before you is for a variance to allow fence and gates to exceed 30 inches in height in the front yard setback at 2550 Johnson Road. This property is located in the residential estate zoning district, 2-acre lots. There are also properties in the RE1 district, 1-acre lots surrounding the area. The request specifically is for a fence variance. This graphic here shows where the fence would be proposed. It's the red line here. The fence is being proposed 22 inches from the front property line, this dark line here, which would be 32 feet from the edge of Johnson Road. This edge of Johnson Road to the property line, that's 10 feet of public right-of-way. The fence would line up with these two columns that you see here. The drainage inlet would be outside of the fence. This gives you a line to where the fence would be. Again, 22 feet from the property line or 32 feet from Johnson Road. Per the applicant, the lot is somewhat narrower than the other lots nearby, which is the justification for the variance per the criteria that are outlined in state law. The fence would be a wrought iron fence, and it would be, as mentioned, 6 feet high. It's unclear if the gates would also be 6 feet high or if they would be somewhat higher, but the applicant is here to clarify that. If this is approved, then they would go to the Neighborhood Services Division to apply for a fence permit. That concludes staff's report.
Are there any questions of staff?
Yes. If the fence were to be installed according to code, where would it be installed?
Okay, so per the plat, this plat, it has quite a large front building line. It has a 100-foot building line, as you see here. However, as we mentioned, this is in the RE Residential Estate Zoning District, which has a 60-foot line. So the fence, while the building has to be set at the line per the plat, which it is, the fence could be at 60 feet, which would be maybe about somewhere right along here. And at that point, a 6-foot-high fence could be installed without necessitating a variance. So it would be about, so this is 22 feet from the property line, so probably about right there.
Could you tell us, as far as a shorter fence, where could a shorter fence go?
So, per the code, a 30-inch fence, which is 2.5 feet high, that is allowed anywhere in the front setback area. It could be right along the property line. It could be all the way back, but a 2.5-foot high fence could be right up on the property line. We did receive one call from a neighbor. They were wanting to know what the constraint or hardship is on the property. And they did say that if there was a justifiable reason that this property is different than the other properties, then it could be considered as it for a variance. However, they were concerned because in this specific section of Johnson Road, there aren't any 6-foot-high fences closer to the property line, and they were concerned about what the character of the neighborhood would look like if this was approved. Mr. Strain. I think it's about 100 feet. Is that what? No, it's got to be wider than that. Does the applicant know how wide that lot is?
56?
Is it 356 feet?
356, is that right?
According to the back, yeah.
200? Does that look about right? About 200 feet? Yeah. I can look, it looks like it's about 200, but when I get back to my iPad, I can look it up for you.
Yeah, it's bound to be 200 because the depth is 400.
Yeah,
So
that looks about right.
8,000 feet is the closest to it.
Okay. Sarah, I did just have another question as far as the, to Mr. Hurley's question, as far as where the fence could actually go and still be compliant. Is there, I believe one of the neighbors has trees that they use as not fencing, but certainly as a barrier to the road.
Yeah.
Are there any restrictions as far as what can be planted in that area?
No, I believe this might be with the property that you're referring to. There are no restrictions for shrubbery in terms of the height. Now, it has to be maintained, it can't be overgrown, but there aren't the same restrictions for landscaping for shrubbery as there are for fences.
Thank you.
They do have to be maintained, though?
It should be.
Do you oversee that?
Are there any more questions of staff? All right, thank you very much. At this time, would open it up for someone on behalf of the applicant or the applicant himself to come and speak. If you will state your name and your address, and then I'll swear you
Sure.
in.
Good evening. My name is Henry Hutton, 2550 Johnson Road, and in attendance is my wife Lisa Hutton and Tuscan Fence Company.
All right, if you'll raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do. Always do.
Wonderful. Just whatever you'd like to.
Well, Chairman, thank you very much for even considering this variance. I assure you that Lisa and I are very excited about this property, and we would do nothing but want to try to enhance the look and the value of our property. It represents a sizable investment, and we've lived in Germantown a long time, and we feel like that the custom ornamental iron fence would actually enhance the property value and would also be in line with many of the properties along Johnson Road on that side of the street. There already are fences that are much higher than 30 inches. So it's not uncommon in this stretch of Johnson Road to have a high fence. Secondly, we have dogs. We have large dog, and for peace of mind for myself that I don't want him out, and peace of mind for my neighbors, they don't want him out either, even though he's not a mean dog, but he is scary looking. So we have two dogs. Safety and security, we have a lot of, we entertain a lot, and Johnson is a fairly busy road. It's on the way to the school, coming and going, so there's quite a bit of traffic. And a small child or the dog jump out the front door, that was a reason. Also, in my line of work, I am gone sometimes at night, And just, we would like to have the security of not really being on the busy road and being a little bit further behind on the, behind a gated area. So we do believe that this is in line with what's already there. Would appreciate your consideration. I want to stress that I feel it'll be enhancing the property value, not, obviously I wouldn't just buy this home and want to do something that would make it less valuable than it already is. So did you all have anything that you wanted to say? I've never done this before, so if I'm an amateur at this, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. If there's somebody else that would like to speak, you'll just need to come to this, to podium so that we could hear.
Yes. Thank you very much.
If you'll just stay nearby in case we have questions.
Sure.
So,
My name is Imran Siddiqui. I'm with Custom Fence Company. Our company address is 247 Moore Lane in Collierville.
all right. If you'll raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to add, and just in the scope of the project, as you can see, is the columns there are obviously short. The columns were going to be extended, obviously, to accommodate the 6-foot fence, I think is in the scope of the project. And to answer your question regarding the gates themselves, they are in typical fashion, a gate of that size, it'll have an upward curve to the middle, so it'll start at 6 and maybe go to 7, 7.5 in the middle to just accentuate the gate itself with automation, entrance and exit. So again, it's to Henry's point, it is a definite improvement in the enhancement of not only the security of the property, but also the aesthetics. And so, and in just listening to the points you were making about where a 6-foot fence would meet code, it pushes that fence very, very far back towards, I guess, the apex of the actual circular driveway, kind of inhibiting the flow, if you will, of traffic coming in and out of those gates. So that's kind of an impediment, which is why we're proposing to come forward to allow those cars. And as Mr. Hutton said, that while you're entertaining, and you'll have much more parking availability inside of those gates, so that there could be access to and from the property. It would maximize the parking in terms of during some sort of function. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of have the whole full scope of the project for your consideration.
Thank you very much. At this point, is there questions for the applicant and his agent?
I have a question for Mr. Hutton. Is there an existing wrought iron fence on the property now with a gate at the
Yes.
driveway?
Yes, I don't know if the picture shows it. There is, right by the house, there is a wrought iron, well, when you pull in the driveway, there is a wrought iron gate. And then between my neighbor back halfway, there's a brick wall. I haven't moved in yet, but I've been through the fence. There's a wrought iron fence gate that you can go through to access the backyard on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a little lost. Is that flush with the front of the house?
Yes, it's flush with the house. Yes, sir.
Just a comment, one of the things that we had spoken about during our executive session time was specific to the area. Johnson Road is, runs from Poplar clear to Wolf River, and the different sections really do look different. There's a more rural area that does not have sidewalks, certainly has some of those fences that you have talked about. And then I know that we had pointed out in the area really where this particular home is, there aren't those. And so to the person who had called in as far as changing the character of that little section, we did have conversation about that, to your point.
And I might comment, just so you will, I can't speak for the other board members, but, so we have a zoning ordinance, and it says where the fence can be located on the property.
Yes, sir.
And for us to deviate from that zoning ordinance, it needs to meet a very narrow set of criteria, and those criteria are set by the state of Tennessee. We can't adopt a different set of criteria locally. It has to meet the requirements of the state of Tennessee. And in my personal opinion, you just you don't meet any of those requirements. When they talk about, for instance, exceptional narrowness of a lot, they're not talking about whether a lot is not as wide as you want it to be. They're talking about the lot is so narrow that it deprives you of being able to properly use your lot or something along those lines.
If you would like to, you need to come up to the podium and be sworn in. Yes. Yes, if you'll state your name and your address,
Lisa Hutton,
and your address.
what, do I give them, I tell them my new one? 2550 Johnson Road, Germantown, Tennessee, 38139.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Always.
Okay, go ahead.
I was curious, I'm getting ready to be 65, and I really want my front door to be behind the gate, just for safety reasons. I know that our crime rate in Germantown is awesomely low because of our amazing police department, but still, at my age, I would really love to be able to have the protection of being behind, the wrought iron fence from my front door. So for me, that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. I think that just kind of, again, well, first off, is there any other questions that we would like to ask?
And just to follow up on my comment, everyone on the board might want to do the same thing you would do with your property if it were our house. And we might even all agree that your house would look better with the changes you've proposed.
It will.
But we aren't allowed to consider those matters on the Board of Zoning Appeal. That type of thing would be considered by the Design Review Commission. Not we are strictly deciding whether a variance can be granted or not.
No, just come, if you'll come up to the microphone and ask.
This is a really crazy question. Henry, don't get mad. My brother-in-law, Herbert Slater, is our Attorney General of Tennessee. Could Herbert maybe get something changed? You were talking about the state.
Generals are criminal,
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry.
and I'm not mad at you.
I thought maybe Herbert could change the rule.
Okay, so for your information.
Good questions, though.
There is a procedure for amending the zoning ordinances. It would have to be amended for the entire city, and it's a very cumbersome procedure. It's not impossible to change zoning ordinances, but by its very nature, the entire city would have to be involved in the process.
Just another comment, and Ms. Hutton, you brought up a good question, because this Board of Zoning Appeals, we have looked at our fence ordinance several times since my time here, and one of the challenges that we have as a Board of Zoning Appeals is that our city has reached build out for the most part, and so anything that we would do by right, which means if we raised fence heights or changed setbacks, it really would make it more of a jigsaw-like setting on that beautiful road that y'all are going to be living on. And so we have to be very thoughtful about these variances and take this very seriously, no matter how this does or does not work out. And so I think, to Mr. Hurley's point, we are charged with a very narrow since we're talking about narrowness, a very narrow window of what would meet as far as criteria, as far as exceptional narrowness or shallowness or shape. It's the topography is unfortunately not exceptional, and so I think that I think we will deliberate more if we need to, but I'll be ready.
Okay.
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
And that is that,
Nope, there you go. Yep, there you go. Except I think.
And
just-
Mr. Yulhorn, you actually have to talk into it.
I think I know that by now. But generally, I'd like to stretch as much as I can for the citizens. But I'm afraid you're thrown out at first base when you just hit a bunt. You know, I don't see any way to stretch in your favor on this deal. There's just no criteria to do it. So.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you can
would,
do that.
you can build a fence, a 6-foot fence. It would simply be 60 feet back rather than 20 feet, I think is what y'all were talking about. So it would be further back, but it'd still be like 40 feet in front of your house. It sounds like it's an unfortunate location based on how the driveway is laid out, so you might have to make some changes to the driveway in order to do it. So it might be a little bit more of a project than y'all thought you were getting into in the first place.
Your house is set back 100 feet, but you can put a fence 60 feet. So, don't know if that helps. Just what we were just saying. Isn't that right, Joe? Am I saying it right?
60 feet. Yes, in RE1.
Make sure it's turned on.
RE1, just so I can get on the record. Yes, our RE is 60 feet back from the property line, so that would be 70 feet from the curb.
All right, any further questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much for your time, for coming. I guess, and,
Take a vote on it.
well, yes, I know.
Unless they want to withdraw it.
I do need to offer, if there's anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the variance. Also, if there's anybody here that would like to speak in opposition of the variance. At this time, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. So,
Move to approve.
and have a second.
Second.
Sorry, Greg.
No, you're good.
Which one?
Which, pick, which?
Gibson. I'll get you.
Let her do it. She beat me to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And if you'll take the roll, please.
Ms. Bowden?
No.
Mr. Yulhorn?
No.
Mr. Hurley?
No.
Alderman
Oh,
Gibson?
I'm sorry. I'm voting no because it does not meet any of the 3 requirements for the granting of a variance.
Do I need to change mine for the same reason? For the same reason stated by Mr. Hurley.
Alderman Gibson?
I unfortunately am voting no as well. The applicant does not meet the criteria for a variance.
Chairman Sisson?
For the reasons stated again, and as Mr. Hurley pointed out, we are limited by this statute, by this ordinance. While we may personally think that this is a great idea under the ordinance, I don't feel that that there is an exception that we can make. So I will be voting no as well. And with that, the motion fails. At this point, I'm unaware of any old business or new business that we need to address.
Just a reminder, on Thursday at 6 o'clock is the boards and commissions dinner in the Great Hall, so hopefully you RSVP if you're able to come.
Yes.
Oh, I've got a question too, and I guess this is really for you, Alan. And that is, like when people just phone in and say,
Thank you.
I don't like this, could that be considered almost hearsay where we say, we're fine if you don't want to be there, you can't be there, but shouldn't we put that in writing or something and sign it? Because I could phone in from across town and say, I live down the street and I don't like it.
It's distract, whoa.
Hot mic.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that when people phone in, this was a concerned neighbor, and I'm sure that's probably the case, but nonetheless, it's almost like hearsay when somebody either can or doesn't want to come to the meeting because maybe they don't want to confront their neighbor. But still, I think it'd give me a better comfort level to see it in writing in a signed letter saying, I don't like it. Because I could phone in from across town just because I
I
don't
think
like
that's a,
Hutton.
I think that's a great idea. When they do call, if you could ask them to follow up with an email, I think that's reasonable.
I did, and the gentleman did not want it made anonymous. How would the board like me to address situations like that? We get that, actually, we do get that.
A lot.
So if someone calls and they want to remain anonymous and they don't give us anything in writing, should we still bring them up at the meeting or not?
I don't think so.
You do have to establish that they have standing, right? I mean, if someone from the city of Memphis, we really don't care what they think.
So, I
We don't have
agree.
to.
I think that if it's something that you feel strongly enough that you want to speak in opposition, you actually have to speak in opposition to it. I understand that exactly. However, if you put something in writing that states your name and puts an address with that, I feel like that gives another level of skin in the game.
Okay, so in the future, I will again emphasize, please send that in writing and you will receive anything back.
Yeah, and you can tell them it's necessary for us to determine,
Or just
to
tell 'em you gotta
establish
have it
that you
right.
have
Right.
a say,
Phone in
that
and
you're a
say, "I don't
citizen
like
of the city of Germantown. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think once they know that, especially if something's important to them, if they know that it will never come to this Board of Zoning Appeals to be seen, I think that would give them a more oomph to get it in. Good point, Mr. Yulhorn.
Yes, thank you very much. At this, at this point, if Commissioner Yulhorn will be quiet, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. And if we don't have a December meeting, oh, okay. Well, then we'll see you in December. Thank you.